I'm going to open this with a simple question which will often get revisited. This is a question which surely a majority of my target audience have asked themselves and will likely continue to do so in some way or another. A question which I would like you to keep in mind as you listen throughout the duration of this webcast project. And that is, have you ever considered how major of a role music plays in our everyday life? Seldom do most of us sit and ponder the depth of music's impact, as it is often pushed into the background. We listen to music in our cars on our way to work as we concentrate on driving, out in public places such as restaurants and shopping centers. It provides an emotional context in film and theater that cannot be achieved through dialogue or any tricks of the eye alone. However, music is much more than just a qualifier to embellish these experiences, among others. It is a medium in which poets can convey their message with the aid of vibrations from any number of instruments ranging from one's own voice to a full orchestra, arranged in infinite forms. There is also a poetry within the composition of the instruments themselves. Words can become vestigial, as it is evident that most of us can recall an instrumental piece that has moved our hearts without any spoken words, but rather the clever use of tones in a particular pattern. This universal language is responsible for tribal barriers being broken down, as surely people throughout history, as they do today, have heard the music of different people and sought to learn how to communicate with them intellectually in order to become fluent in their sonic discourse. Simply put, music is a celebration of life, which can bring the most unlikely individuals together to relish in the omnipresent, ambrosial moment that we share together. What a privilege it is to have a sense of hearing, don't you agree? Birds and insects play their songs for the mates they are soliciting as we eavesdrop on them in only what I can consider a sapient-centric manner in order to appropriate their sounds for our own fulfillment. We feel it is our duty as self-aware products of this world to understand what's going on around us and make sense of it. From the show put on by a lightning storm and the subsequent roll of thunder, to the tranquil tune of water turbulence and the bubbling eddies of a river, or the deafening silence of a snowy winter night. But of course, there are those sounds in nature which can be less than peaceful. A bear devouring the viscera of an elk as it's eaten alive, the gnashing antlers of a deer in the rut, the relentless brutality of a pack of wolves on the hunt, a swarm of locusts buzzing and scraping as they invade every square inch of occupied space, all of which are embraced and reflected metaphorically in the sounds that we create for our own catharsis. Surely, as the stars in the sky were once thought to be signals from the heavens, we feel driven by the rhythm of our environment. It stands to reason that at some point, the first humans must have started to sing their own songs in recreation, as it must have been of little importance as a utility as ancient hominids. Yet in our evolution as a species, we have used technology in ways to better convey our musings. The heroes of our music world we often see as the greats who have made it on stage. Carlos Santana, Mavis Staples, B.B. King, MF Doom, Miles Davis, Geddy Lee, I could go on. But the true heroic story of those artists is what happened before they were in such an advantageous position in their music career which made them the greats. Those young bundles of creativity that endured net losses while trying to just be heard, who persevered despite the message of naysayers who said that music is not a sustainable career, advising them not to quit their day job. The three-piece bands playing in dive bars, the hip-hop duos performing at 7th Street Entry, the singer-songwriters at your local coffee shop. Those are the people I'm trying to find. They are the lifeblood of culture, channeling the environment around them to connect us to our own humanity. As culture is constantly in flux, they are the seeds of change that will grow fruit to feed the future generations of creatives to come. I would also like to mention that I would be lying if I didn't admit that this project is in part a projection of my own story. I tried to create music myself when I was younger, and despite the fact that I had so much fun doing it, between my neuroses and reluctance to research music theory or invest in more, shall I say, formal training in playing and composing music, I fell short of what you would consider a musician. You'll come to find that this mission of helping local musicians be heard has to do a lot with my own experiences with local music growing up in North Iowa. There wasn't much to do where I grew up, unless you consider going to Walmart late at night for no reason, vandalizing property, doing drugs, drinking, or doing all of them at the same time as acceptable teenage recreational activities. However, this is a time when social media was in its advent, so local music was kind of easy to find given that it was spread through word of mouth on MySpace. I even met my first girlfriend when she invited me to a local show at a community center in a neighboring town for a band called Puking on Mannequins, which marked the beginning of this time when I sort of discovered people were making music outside of the records that I could commercially purchase. Because I sort of always imagined garage bands as lore in the mythos of pop culture movies depicting angsty teenagers in the suburbs. Hardcore, punk, and metal was a big deal for us in North Iowa. It was where we came together to collectively shout our angst at the world, while simultaneously celebrating our youth, as it was much more constructive than the aforementioned vandalization and drugs. This is even more apparent when you consider the straight-edge hardcore movement, wherein people swore off drugs and alcohol, and in even more extreme cases, rejecting pharmaceuticals and taking a puritanical stance on sex. Some people were divisive about being straight edge and who they associated with, but I was good friends with plenty of these people, and they were very genuine. Again, it was all about belonging and enjoying ourselves, maybe due to the fact that we were in the rural Midwest and we were the weird kids that didn't belong anywhere. I made lasting friendships with other people in that scene, who I can only imagine were also more or less in similar social situations as I was. To make a point of what I was talking about earlier, in that music brings the most unlikely individuals together for a common interest, a Christian band was rather popular in our subculture. And even though on the surface you wouldn't think that a bunch of punks and metalheads would be too keen on religious proselytizing, yet that Christian message breached the walls of the church and found their way into the scene with a group of guys I've come to know and respect over the years named Senseless Beauty. Our native bands came together with neighboring metro areas, such as a band named Icolide and another named Claire de Lune from the Minneapolis area. what we found in each other in this thrashing about in the wake of energetic music with largely incomprehensible lyrics given its setting was a sense of camaraderie. Something we may or may not have been getting at home or school, a celebration of being uniquely set apart from a majority of our peers to become similar in our awkwardness. Even though from a third-person perspective you wouldn't think that this was an act of camaraderie and self-love, as we were intentionally punching, kicking, and pushing each other, it was a voluntary act of solidarity in opposition to conformity. If you were to find pictures of me at that age, you'd find a plump, disproportionate kid with weird dyed hair that hung in his eyes, sporting an obscure band t-shirt one size too small as a means to solely advertise to a certain esoteric minority of the population. That's right, I was a living, breathing caricature of the emo kids portrayed on South Park, which was a joke that I often laughed at, because what is life? You can't laugh at yourself, right? I own that part of my life with a cringy badge of honor. And the thing that set me apart was that I didn't give a shit about sports teams because my tribe was this punk or hardcore or metal movement, whatever you want to call it, that's been in flux since its creation, yet maintaining the momentum of its message, and it stays clear. We're young, we're not buying your bullshit, we're gonna call you out on it while being as weird as possible. We all need a place to belong, and this is where I found refuge. Even if it was slightly cliquey like any other anomaly in culture, as I have been critical in the past of the cognitive dissonance of punks to not accept people as they are. Despite all of that, given how connected the scene was, this web that it would weave showed me the power that music had. And it still amazes me, as I get into this project, how small the world seems to get when you immerse yourself into the finer details of human interaction that begets local performances. Music got me through the existential depression that was being a teenager who was transcending childhood into adulthood. Not only because of this newfound community that I had become a part of, but the wide variety of beautiful music that I listened to growing up. You'll come to find that I have enthusiasm for a wide array of talented artists, from jazz, blues, hip-hop, the long-forgotten days of country music, and much more. And here we stand, folks, on the precipice of a new era. An era in which large record companies no longer are the sole arbiters of the all-too-important manifestation of modern-day hymns. We are in the advent of the sharing economy, an open source of information and creative forces. This project is part of a movement which is toppling old power structures, and a message of empowerment to the lesser known, lesser heard among us, who have something important to show and tell you. The impetus of this pivotal time we live in is unstoppable. Airbnb is being temporarily outlawed in some places in the US, likely following lobbying efforts by well-established competing interests. And traditional taxi services are trying to push ride-sharing apps into irrelevance. I'm simply inviting you to join me in this journey as a fellow spectator in this paradigm shift of the standard AM/FM music broadcast format, as I seek only to convince you to support your local artists so that they may be the next generation's heroes. I'm asking you to go out and pay the $5 cover charge to go see local bands. Show up, bob your head, sing along, dance, mosh, jump up and down, scream at the top of your lungs to voice enthusiasm for their service to your soul. I'm asking you to listen and contribute to local artists, because the people you'll be hearing from, and the countless more to come, are worth your time and money. I otherwise wouldn't be having them on. Voting with your dollar is one of the most meaningful votes that you have. Use it wisely, and use it for the lesser heard geniuses who fall through the cracks of the minutia that is the entertainment business. My name is Trey, and this webcast is called Subversion. I will only be a vessel, as this would not be possible without the numerous guests, audience members, and musicians who will be contributing to this as we intentionally undermine the music world by striking a vein in numerous creative subcultures, not simply limited to music, but that will be our central focus. You can expect to hear unique music for the first time, the intriguing life story of the people that I have on, and musings about mortality in the broadcast future. I would like to thank all of you for listening to my mission statement. Even if I am only reaching a small audience, myself and my guests will be grateful for each and every listening ear. This is the beginning of a new and beautiful relationship. Please subscribe on whichever podcast app of your choosing, and also check me out on Facebook at facebook.com/subversionwebcast, and also at soundcloud.com/subversionwebcast. In addition to the bands and artists that were played along with their mentions, first track you were hearing was a remix called Land Ho, as done by Ander and originally done by Monster Rally. Another track, a joint effort by Monster Rally and Rum Tum called Coasting, behind the remainder of the monologue, as well as the track you hear behind me called Chicks. You'll come to hear a lot of music from Monster Rally and other artists from Gold Robot Records, who are gracious enough to offer permission to play their talents' productions on my webcast, and I urge you to check them out, as they have a lot of very talented artists on their roster. That being said, I'd like to take this opportunity to plug that I'm having a little bit of a hard time finding artists or record labels who have music that would suit my needs to do monologues. So if you or anyone else you know want to contribute music, please reach out to me. Also, a big shout out to Orson Welles, band from my hometown, who is playing behind the monologue close to the beginning where the music breaks into grindcore.